Great. Welcome, everybody. It's the afternoon of Thursday, the 15th of January, 2026. We are continuing our introductory testimony on what's working, what's not working, background, and where we ought to go with respect to housing. And Samantha Sheehan from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns started her testimony this morning, but we ran out of time, and so she's back with us on short notice, and will continue her testimony. Samantha, take it away.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to screen share. Thanks for having me back so soon. Appreciate it. Okay, so where's my option to slideshow? Here we go. Oh. Okay, so what were we talking about? We were talking about municipal authority to set code. And including fee and permitting and inspection, sort of as required to support the zoning and the municipal plan of the
Right,
community.
and I have a question right off.
Okay, cool.
Not everybody says cool when I say I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the issues that's come up is the desire in certain circumstances for a truly uniform code in certain areas. Like, for example, there's a fear that it's difficult to do bulk orders of off-site prefabricated housing if each community has different, requirements, building code requirements. But I guess I'd like a comment from you on whether communities have such authority to enact stricter, their own energy code, their own building code, number one, and number two, has anybody besides Burlington?
So there are municipalities that have components of building code, I guess is a way you could think about it. There are many municipalities that require construction permits, and those permit conditions vary. There are municipalities that require building permits or construction permits for interior construction only, some that require for exterior construction only, some that require a site inspection, some just require a site plan or a building plan or a plan signed by the appropriate type of architect or engineer, right? But they're not using a municipal inspector or engineer. To my knowledge, there are no Vermont municipalities that have code as rich as the International Building Code or the state's
They tend to be focused.
building energy code, right? They're focused, right? So to use Burlington for an example, has rental weatherization requirements in their local regs. Montpelier is working on a sort of component that is a sort of climate driven building policy as well. I know that Rutland requires building permits for exterior construction, I think with a site visit from the permitting inspector. There are many municipalities that require their own other types of technical permits, such as connection to potable water service and sewer, right? Which is totally practical. It's the municipality that owns the sewer pipe and the drinking pipe and wants to ensure that it is safely getting inside the building and not being used or connected in a way that's going to damage the public infrastructure or tax the public infrastructure. So again, VLCT advocates for the authority of municipalities to regulate building and development of all sorts, especially for housing in their community. But generally, as we've discussed here and in committees across the building for as long as VLCT has been established, the authorities to generate revenues that support that capacity is extremely limited per state law. And generally, municipalities are operating to their capacity, which means a prioritization. There's good reasons for Burlington as a community to prioritize rental units and how they're built, how they're weatherized, and focusing on making them safe and affordable for renters and young people to live in. There's 10,000 college students there. So it's a priority of that community to focus their inspection and enforcement resources in that way.
Okay,
Yeah,
great, thank you, go ahead.
okay. Not to just keep talking about Burlington, but I do want to talk about form-based code, which is a type of comprehensive zoning that an increasing number of Vermont municipalities are moving towards. I believe you heard testimony from Let's Build Homes last week about their concept for root zones, and this is a important sort of foundational information I'm going to share. So I'm just going to talk about.
I look forward to your telling us what form-based code really means.
Great, because it sounds like it means nothing, right?
Well, no, they just, the
Yeah.
people at Let's Build Homes throw this word around.
Yeah.
left
Yeah, I
and
should have
right,
gone
like we're
first.
supposed to understand it. They think we're smarter than we are. is what
Yeah.
it is.
I think what we
Okay,
learned
wow.
here, Mr. Chair, is in the future, I should be scheduled first and they should be scheduled second.
You do.
Right?
I will take note of
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so form-based code is a concept, we're talking at the concept level. I think it's a really confusing set of three words. It's sort of like tax increment financing. It's like a powerful and exciting policy that has a really poorly chosen name. Like form-based code sounds like the most boring thing we could ever dive into. But what it is a type of municipal regulation that is written at a generally higher standard than other types of comprehensive zoning bylaw. And in particular, it is more prescriptive and it is less subjective. The goal being not at all subjective. And several Vermont municipalities have adopted form-based code already for a portion of their community. So like a zoning district or more than one zoning district in their community. I believe the oldest is the city of Newport, which was adopted in 2010 for their downtown. And the newest is Jericho, which was adopted late last year. Also Winooski, Burlington, and South Burlington have form-based code in their downtown areas, and importantly, also where their TIF districts are. Which has really helped those three TIF communities capitalize on sort of the potential of that growth area. And I think in all three cases, I think Winooski had their TIF and then passed their form-based code. And so developing form-based code can be a long and arduous process, because if you remember from my testimony earlier this morning, state law prescribes the process that municipalities use to develop local regulation. And the level of detail and specificity and the breadth of component in form-based code requires a lot of public process to reach consensus on what's in the code.
You got a question, Elizabeth?
I'm sorry, but I still don't know what form-based code is.
She's getting there, I think. She's just
Wanting
kind
to
of
get there?
winding up, see?
Well, it's zoning and bylaw. It's a type of zoning and bylaw.
What type of zoning? That doesn't say what it is.
Zoning and bylaws that have enough, she said the keywords,
It's
The whole
less
idea is
to,
to limit discretion.
Yeah.
So that all these decisions about, it could be, what do the buildings look like? Where are they? How do you deal with all kinds of environmental problems? All of that is spelled out in the zoning code.
So
that
as
if so-
opposed to what?
As opposed to the permit. So it means that it's all worked out at the plan level and the zoning code. So that means the idea is the developer comes in and they know what they can put together and
it's like a
basically,
menu.
it's
for the
just a yes,
architect or the
no.
developer.
But
Yeah.
each municipality is different.
right.
Yeah, they write it themselves through the process that is laid out in state law for developing local bylaw.
It's yes, the whole idea is the
Yeah.
building permit, you just come in for a building permit and it's yes or no.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, see, right now in most zoning, they tell you what the use is and the setbacks, but a lot of communities, the rest of it is up to the DRB at the time of the permit. The idea here is to eliminate that so that it's all done at the zoning, worked out at the zone level.
So like I read all of our form-based code except for Jericho's, that's on my TBR, to be read list. Form-based code says things like it lists the type of material that the siding can be on a building. Including on the first and second floor, these 5 materials can be used. On the third and fourth and above floor, these 10 materials can be used.
Got it.
It provides a ratio of window to wall. It says if you have an awning, the awning can be made from these types of materials. If you have shutters, the scale relationship of the shutter to the window has to be within this range. That's what we mean by prescriptive.
Yeah.
The whole
And so
idea
then the
being,
zoning administrator is not testing, like, cause there are places where the bylaw says. If you have shutters, they have to be consistent with the types of shutters used historically in this community.
Yeah.
Right, where the form-based code says it can't be this much bigger than a window or this much smaller than a window. And you just have to know if that's true in order to get the permit.
just to clarify one important thing, this scheme, the whole idea of having that level of detail in the form-based code means that you don't have a hearing before the DRB where the DRB can say,
Yeah.
well, we don't know, we like that siding. How about this siding instead?
Mhm.
How about that siding? You decided ahead of time,
Yeah.
if it's one of these 5 types of siding, you're in. That's
Yeah.
it.
So
Thinking.
I'm looking for some way to have enough consistency between communities that offsite manufactured homes don't have to be redesigned every single time they build one,
Mhm.
okay? This will start a revolt in my community. And
Form-based
plus, the form, the size of the shutters in one town and the size of the shutters in another town aren't gonna be consistent anyway, so there's some detailing, so is there an in-between here? This just screams HOA, to me, which is great if that's where somebody wants to be. But for like just a state level way to circumvent local details, which are a problem for offsite. If this applies to anything else but offsite, I mean, if this just were to apply in general,
These codes they don't
Well-
apply, they're by community.
Yeah, that-
okay, but does that help? If
Are
we're
you,
this prescriptive with offsite housing, it'll kill it.
By
Well,
community, if you're saying if
Well,
if each community is being
Yes.
extremely prescriptive to their tastes and desires, then there's gonna be inconsistency for the builders that are trying to do offsite production. So they'll have to meet all of the
Depending
communities.
on if they can deliver a home without shutters, trim and siding, and the community can do whatever they want with it locally, that a local contractor, that makes some sense.
Okay.
Don't,
I should have started with the number
Okay,
one
so-
pro of form-based code, which is it virtually ends the opportunity for appeal of the municipal permit. In Vermont, the court data shows that 2/3 of the permit appeals are against the municipal permit. This is in part because they're the older regulations, they contain more subjective language, such as the character of the neighborhood test. Because oftentimes the builder gets that permit first before going to Act 250 because of the Act 250 process. There's more than one reason why the municipal permit appeals are larger in volume, but the fact remains true that they are. Most of the projects that are held up in appeal are held up on the municipal appeal. In the major advantage of adopting form-based code, which is why these communities that have done so already have gone after it, is because it dramatically reduces the opportunity for appeal. Because it's so specific and you're not asking any of the appropriate municipal panels to make a discretionary decision, nor are you asking the court to make a discretionary decision. If it goes to court. So that's the major pro. Your questions or the discussion so far have identified some of the cons, which is the length of public process to reach consensus on the code. The level of prescriptiveness is a criticism that folks have made, including architects and home builders who are like, I don't like that. Well, I don't like these choices, right? And there are solutions for those, such as the opportunity for expedited public process, the opportunity to provide municipalities with model code, the opportunity to provide municipalities with the technical resources and professional planning support that they need to get through this. The opportunity to provide a minimum and a maximum standard or prescriptiveness in the code, right? Like there are ways that this could be made easier. What we have right now are some sort of very housing ambitious, very housing ready communities that have taken this step forward, primarily also because they've been incented to do so through something like the clicking talk of the TIF district.
Just
Is another,
to clarify one way this works. There's legally two types of decisions in all the law.
Yep.
Discretionary and non-discretionary. A classic discretionary decision is a DRB decision about whether to approve a project in most towns. How much, design review, they're gonna look at the design. Do I like it? I know it when I see it,
Mhm.
right? The classic case, I'm using classic, not form-based code. Classic case of a non-discretionary is a building code. Because the building officer, they just have a checklist. It's yes or no. It has to be yes or no. Did you comply with all the building code requirements? If you do, you get your building code. That's a classic non-discretionary decision. Generally speaking, when non-discretionary decisions are reviewed by anybody, whoever it is, it's easy. Did they check the wrong box or didn't they check the wrong box? If they checked the right box, end of story. You can't argue that a project shouldn't have been approved. If you're at the building permit stage, you can't, someone who tries to appeal it isn't going to get very far. They can't argue that they don't like it, that it has too much impact on traffic, that it has,
Mhm.
whatever the argument is, they can't use it because that's all past. It's just what's in the building code, yes or no. And so they'd have to show that literally the wrong box was checked. Discretionary decisions are appealable, of course. And I think what Samantha is saying is that the more you decide, let's take the example she just gave. Let's say a community cares about what it looks like. And ordinarily, the design review board would decide that. They would just decide, do we think it's pretty? Do we like it? It's consistent with the character of the neighborhood. And some towns might put pastels, nothing too bright. I mean, there's criteria, but they apply them. This one instead says, we're gonna decide all that ahead of time at the at the zoning level. We're just gonna decide, here's
Yeah,
10 different
catalog.
sightings, here's the catalog. You're in the catalog, then the building permit just checks yes. If you're not in the catalog, no. And the idea of this is that if someone has an opinion about that, the time for them to yell about it is the time when the zoning code is adopted,
when they're building a catalog.
when the building catalog is there. Once that's done, it's over.
Mhm.
Then at that point, anything that's consistent with it is approved. One thing a community can do is say, okay, if you don't want to be in the catalog, then you go to the DRB.
That was my question. Are any communities
Okay.
doing that where they give the option of catalog or you go the hard route? And the uncertain route of going through DRB, or is
I
it,
don't
you just don't get a building
think
permit?
so, but every community I know of in Vermont, the form-based code does not apply municipality wide.
Right, it's like a zone.
It's like their highest density district, their designated growth area, their designated neighborhood area. It's not everywhere.
Which when we use those terms, what we're talking about is like the main street of your town that everybody's gonna go by, or like in front of your school, or in front of the main library, or.
Yeah, it's probably more like five, yeah, it's probably like a
Stores.
5 by 5 block radius, right? It's about the size of the growth area or the TIF district, like the Burlington Form-Based Code District overlaps with their TIF district in the South Burlington center.
Okay.
So if you've been there, if you've been to the South Burlington TIF, it's awesome and it feels like everything looks the
And
same.
St. Albans.
I don't think St. Albans has form-based code. But if you
Oh,
walk,
oh, oh.
like if you walk around the South Burlington TIF district and you remember that I told you it was form-based code, you'll be like, oh, right. Cause you see the same types of,
Like Market Street.
So
Where's our TIF district?
yeah, it's like where,
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's like, you know where the library is?
Yeah, Market
It's-
Street.
Yeah, that's Market Street. Sorry, I'm tired.
That's all right.
It's that area and then,
Like around the library.
and then
Right,
the
that
new-
parallels from
and then
like
the new
Dorset
area,
to.
and I welcome anyone to come visit anytime.
It's awesome. Okay.
Sure.
So as the chair said, when you approach local regulation in this way with this tool, form-based code, the process for input and feedback and the democratic process that says this is what, not just what we want to be built in our community, but what we're gonna make legal to build in our community, that happens up front, not on the back end, not through the citizen lay panel of the design and review board, not done by the zoning administrator in the permitting process. So I actually really wanted to use Winooski as sort of a test case to walk through how this comes about, because I think Winooski's adoption was the fastest, and I like to learn from things that move really fast. But I think Winooski went beginning to end for 3 years for them to adopt. In Burlington, from depending on how you measure, this had been a long identified plan and priority of the city's planning department. And then the project really got underway in earnest with a HUD grant in 2010. And then in when was the joint committee formed? So between 2010 and 2014, the planning commission led basically a series of assessments and studies in sort of preparation for the form-based code process. And then the mayor at the time, Mayor Weinberger, and the city council at the time took action to create a joint committee of the city council and the planning commission that really undertook the code, which according to the
Sure
city
are.
report,
Let me believe.
included more than 30 public meetings. And then the code was finally adopted in the downtown in 2017 and was most recently amended last year. But since 2017 until now, there has not been an appeal of the municipal permit in the downtown since the form-based code was adopted, while hundreds of housing units have been built and permitted. And you'll remember that since the passage of Act 181, that area has also been totally Act 250 exempt. So together, these two tools, the local regulation and approach to writing that regulation and the decision to exempt Act 250 in that growth center have been really productive.
Was that decision just a one-off,
What?
the exemption?
That's the temporary exemptions.
Oh,
And
it's
then
the temporary
and now
because,
they get into
because it's
permanent
a,
exemptions.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
Not because it's a form-based code,
Yeah.
because it's a city,
because
it's a
it's,
tier one, it's a city, what do they
Yeah.
call it? Yeah,
Yeah.
Designated.
designated city center or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Okay,
downtown is what we used to call it.
Downtown.
Now we're gonna call it an FLU, and in the future, we're gonna call it a tier 1A. But now and remember, we want to extend, we advocate to extend the Act 250 exemptions for those downtown areas and village centers through 2030, our housing goal. Period. I'm gonna come back to this at the end. I think I want to go straight into talking about the path for a municipality to achieve some or total Act 250 exemption.
before you do, I just want to reiterate what Tom said. Definitely something for us to think about. If we really want to promote standardized statewide accessibility to offsite manufactured housing, we're gonna have to think about how
Exempt
we
them.
do with form-based code. And there's lots of ways we could, but we definitely have to, or it wouldn't work. It's
Right, you
just,
can't have both. You can't
well,
have
it might
both the way
be,
that
you know,
we're
it might
currently
be
thinking about it.
if eventually we get to 802 homes and, you know, it's one of the 5 or the 10 approved home standards, then that has to be approved and, you know, is deemed approved. There's all kinds of ways we could do it.
That's a preemption what you just
Yeah,
described, but
we'd
that's
have to do something, a partially preemption or something, or else he's right.
Can I ask,
Tom,
Oh,
can I ask a really dumb
No.
question? So
he's always right, yes.
the catalog of beautifully,
That's 802 homes.
that's 802 homes, are they automatically okay in these towns? Or now they are
No.
not automatically okay? Okay.
And that's not that far along.
automatically.
I'm
I
so
mean-
sorry.
Probably,
Not
because
yet,
these are
Yeah,
the places I listed in Vermont that currently use form-based code are zoned for density and growth. And probably that would be a legal home there. From what I recall, but it's not written in these codes are much older than 802 homes.
And 802 homes.
With the
isn't
exception
done
of
yet.
Jericho.
Okay.
Yeah, those are just different things.
Okay.
Okay. So I wanna talk about, so as of last month, the LURB has begun officially to receive the regional plans that identify the tier 1A and 1B eligible areas, and these are the maps that will create 1B. When you're 1B, you get Act 250 exemption up to 50 units, right? 1A status is total exemption of Act 250 regulation in these really important growth centers in the community, such as downtown Burlington, downtown Winooski, the South Burlington TIF, etc. Those 3 are all 1A eligible. So we commonly, I think in this building and elsewhere, and even as we, VLCT, have been educating our members, we've been referring to 1A as the places that have zoning and sewer, right? That's not totally true. It's the places that have zoning and sewer and meet 8 other statutory requirements of Act 181, and that's what these are. So these are from statute, this list. So you have to have a municipal plan, 200 towns have that. You have to have boundaries consistent with the FLUs, formerly the DGAs.
What does that value stand for?
Future land use area. You have to have that regional plan map and those boundaries for the FLGs affirmatively approved through the LURB process first before you can buy. You have to have adopted flood hazard and river corridors that meet the statutory standard. you have to have permanent land development regulations that support smart growth. I'll identify that's subjective. That's a subjective test in the law that's up to the LURB to decide. You have to be consistent and compatible with the character of adjacent national historic sites and other areas of cultural significance. I'll point out that's also subjective. And then there's more things, right? And so it's hard to just be a community that could reach tier 1A.
Question.
Yeah,
Public water and wastewater systems have the capacity to support development. Where is the language of suitable soils? Coming here because.
That's not-
that's not.
That's not in 1A.
That's
That's
not
not
one A, that's
So
1B,
1B.
yeah. Then if you, the town, so I'm gonna pretend here for the rest of this conversation that I'm Rutland City, the city of Rutland, which we think is gonna be the first urban center in Vermont that's gonna be in line to apply for tier 1A, and we believe that they will. And most of the municipality is within this area mapped in the draft RPC map for Rutland County. So when Rutland City is, so first. Okay, so Rutland, the city of Rutland has gone through all of these municipal planning processes required by law for their plan, their zoning, and their permanent bylaw that we talked about this morning. That has happened and in many cases took years to get to. Then they have gone through this last 18 months of being first in line for the regional planning process, and their regional planning director and staff have led the entire county of Rutland County through this planning process and gone through community input and outreach, and there's been meetings and there's been draft maps and changes to the maps. All the planning commissions have been involved countywide, and now the Rutland RPC has their draft map. That has been officially submitted to the LURB. Now we start here at number 1. So the draft maps, now we start at number 2. It's now officially before the LURB. There's a 60-day pre-application period. And ignore this AAFM, I pulled this from my testimony to agriculture yesterday. So there's a 60-day pre-application period with statutory notice requirements. So these are all the organizations, neighboring areas and communities and regions and interested stakeholders that have to receive notice of the map and that it's been submitted. Then there's a pre-application process sort of adjacent to this for the tier 1B status communities, the municipalities that want to opt into tier 1B. And then there is a public hearing at the LURB. Throughout this period, there's an opportunity for formal objection and just public comment at the LURB. And then the LURB will issue a decision within 15 days. So it's a minimum 75-day process with multiple opportunities for the public to engage or intervene in that. Then the regional plan goes back to the RPC. They go through a public process and then adopt the map. And then the map goes back to the LURB, and then the LURB will have another final hearing and public process to make a final determination and either deny or affirm the map. If it's denied, the RPC gets 18 months to do a redo. If it's affirmed, the FLUs are now in place and the 1B statuses are affirmed. So then if you're.
Tom, are you sticking your hand up in your ear?
The FLUs, so I understand they're being used to determine the 1A, 1B.
Yeah,
Do they have other future functions? As with regard to zoning development? I mean, at this point, do we anticipate them having trails or something?
probably, but not as a requirement of Act 181.
And where can I find the RPC's draft maps according to statutory requirements, assuming this Act 181 and shared methodology? Where can I?
I have all of that
Determine
linked and
that.
I'll give you a little
Okay, let me thank you.
preview of it before I finish.
Okay.
So now we'll assume that we're in the future and in about a month from now, the LURP has approved and affirmed the Rutland County Regional Map. Now the city of Rutland can begin its Tier 1A application process, which really mirrors the first process substantially with a different set of guidelines that the LURP has developed and now are available for you to look at. And so there's a pre-application period. They get connected with a member of the LURP that goes through a pre-application review. There's a hearing date that's set. At that time, Rutland has its own public comment process requirements where it has to send the map out to even more stakeholders than are actually required in law. It's even longer statutory notice list. They have to collect all the public comments from that people. They have to make a report. They have to include that in their application. And all the while they're working with a LURP member to like sort of prepare their application according to the full 1A guidelines, which again are going to test some of these standards. Like, is it consistent with the National Historic Sites? Is it consistent with smart growth planning principles? Prove that your flood plain language as written is up to the state standard, etc. Then after that pre-application period, the LURP holds a public hearing. Again, there's an opportunity for public comment, including objection. And then the LURP deliberates, affirms or denies the Tier 1A. And that's how a municipality gets 3% or less of its community exempted from Act 250.
You
It's a
mean,
very long,
wait. You mean, that's how.
that's on
the
average.
state- That's how we get 3% is if everybody in
It's
here,
everybody, right, so if you remember, so currently the estimated area eligible to be Tier 1A full Act 250 exempt is less than 3%, and it's a range of 0.5% in the NEK to up to 11% in Chittenden County. Chittenden County is one of the draft maps available and before the RPC.
okay,
So that's the ongoing process that we're in now. And remember that that all comes after that regional and state led process all comes after the local processes. I'm gonna quickly show you what you can access here through this particular PowerPoint. So there's a list of municipal charters, the statutes that prescribe zoning and bylaw and municipal planning processes, some tools that are developed by like this is Two Rivers Ottaquechee, that's my regional planning district, has some guidance issued to town officials on how to navigate that public planning process that might be interesting for you to look at. And I thought I linked some sample form-based codes in here, but I didn't. I'm happy to send those along. And then here are the references to the Act 181 related information. So this is the map viewer where you can see the 3 maps that are in the pre-application period. So it's Northwest, Chittenden, and Rutland. The Tier 1A guidelines are there, the draft Tier 3 rule, the draft Tier 3 map. And then we hosted a webinar where members of the LURP participated and explained these things, and that's recorded. I have even more I'm realizing, this is only half of a slide here, but I can send those to you through Miriam. I have the methodology, I can give you a link to the shared methodology that all the RPCs use to set the FLUs. Also the document that describes the required RPC process that I paraphrased for you that the LURP set out for the adoption of the regional plans. But that was all.
I have one.
Oh, wait, no, that actually wasn't all. These were my suggestions, but I'll leave that.
I have one comment that I just want to share from my own past experience. You see how elaborate this process is? This planning process? Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing depends on your, I guess, viewpoint. But the advantage of the planning process is the idea is you give as much process as is necessary to give everybody a chance to really express what their feelings are about the plan and and get as much buy-in as you can get. And the theory, if you're going to really take advantage of all of that work, the theory is you've done a lot of the work and you try to bleed as much as you can out of the individual permit that a developer has to do and try to make the permitting itself as easy as possible after all that work and the planning. And there's just a movement around the country to try to move as much as possible out of the permitting process, the individual permit, into the planning process. If you are a builder or a housing advocate, the advantage of that is the people who tend to become involved in these planning processes are people who really care about planning. They tend to be, a lot of them are professionals. A lot of them are savvy about planning. A lot of the environmental organizations and environmentalists involved are the same kinds of people, the people that really understand planning and get, aren't just anti-development, et cetera. They're into where should it be, where shouldn't it be, about which there's plenty to disagree. The people who don't tend to show up are people who really don't care about that stuff until it comes down to what happens in their immediate vicinity or a project that's next door to them.
Or their own land.
Or their own land, they don't show up. So the disadvantage from the point of view of participation, a lot of people argue, well, we really want to let the DRB, the local, when a project comes up, we want to let there be hearings, full hearings, all the issues should be up for grabs again, so that people who are neighbors can make whatever argument they want. The counter argument, which you'll hear from a lot of the housing people, is no. It should all be decided at the plan, and then that's it. It's over. And if we don't do that, we won't build housing. Because hearing what you hear again and again from the housing community, true or not, is hearings kill housing. So that's kind of the duality here, is the more, and that's why she started with form-based code, the more elaborate and detailed your plan is. Like the San Francisco downtown plan actually gives rules on the shape of your high rise. And once that was decided, everybody built to that shape. And some architects had inputs in that and they were happy, and other architects who came into town later were upset because they didn't get to have their design.
Yeah.
It was all decided, but it was much quicker and much easier.
And it can always be amended, like
I was gonna ask how,
the
yeah,
Burlington Code's been amended many times.
Is it up for amendment soon? Or I saw something on the agenda.
They're going through a process that I can't totally accurately answer.
All
that
right.
question. I know they're going through a process in the South End plan.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
saw
sure
some,
about-
I'm
not sure about that
I
yet.
watched Burlington City Council, riveting.
Yeah.
And I saw something about. But I had another question. I don't know if I'm first or not. You go first.
You know what? He's had so much chance to talk. You go ahead.
Yeah.
No, fine, that's fine.
No, I'm
Fair
just kidding,
enough.
I'm just kidding,
Go ahead.
I take up space all the time, I believe I've requested. We're going to possibly have some folks who are doing this work,
Mhm.
town planners. Et cetera, so maybe we can work with your organization to get some folks here,
That'd be great.
I think it could be good to hear how things are for those folks who are doing the work that we're seeing.
Yeah,
And I'm really interested in tier 1B and tier 2, because so much of the state is in tier 2.
Yeah, and our South Burlington guy, I watch all those city council meetings as well, real city council queen. he's also, so yeah, I'd love to hear from some town, we don't have, doesn't have to be him. The Montpelier one as well was recommended and right down the road, but I'd love to hear, yeah, I'd love to hear more about their perspective of what you're talking about.
So I had talked with Josh. You know, we knew this would be a primarily sort of educational discussion with you today
Yeah,
about the existing processes and authorities and the limitations that municipalities have right now to support development through regulation. That said, we discussed like sort of what are some concepts, like if your committee of the legislature of state government wants to really push on those existing authorities and opportunities and make them move faster and come out with better outcomes, what are some concepts that we could use to support that in legislation this year?
Mhm.
And so this is kind of what we came up with. So one is to streamline the local adoption of state preemptions and model code. So if the state does present model code now or in the future, and more preemptions, which of course VLCT officially opposes preemptions to local code, but they exist now in law and may in the future. If that happens, we just think we shouldn't have to have 15 to 30 public hearings in order to update the bylaw. The professional staff and the select board should be able to update the bylaw so that it's consistent with the changes in state law. And those public processes should be used and focused on other efforts and priorities of the community. You had language in your housing bill from this committee last year and it was taken out in the Senate.
That would have done.
Yes,
wah, wah.
yeah, so thank you for that. Love to see it come back.
Is there anything that you heard from the Senate that
I-
would have
I think
allowed it
It got
to?
lost.
There was chaos, where you remember that
Chaos.
period of time.
It was the,
But I
Try
think it
not
was,
to?
I think
Try
it was
not to,
Senate natural
remember.
that took it out.
Hmm.
I think, or a request, or had a concern about it. We also, of course, forever and will continue to advocate against the duplicative state and local regulatory process. A tool for this is the concept of municipal delegation, which has been used in the past. The state has over 100 permits. Of course, some of those permits only apply to like airports. But the state has over 100 permits. Many of them are technical. Many of them are duplicated in local regulations and permit requirements, especially in our urban and growth centers where sewer and water is. And stormwater infrastructure. We suggest strengthening the existing programs that are available to support municipalities in these process and this code development and bringing up the standard of their local regulations. The primary tool right now is the municipal planning grants given out through DHCD. And there was a program called MTAP created in an FY23 budget, and that was not funded in the FY26 budget. And this is again conceptual, but the idea of de-risking these sort of entrepreneurial type endeavors, whether it's buying a bunch of offsite built homes together with another community, going into a public-private development through a proposed CHIP project, going all the way through a TIF district, right? These sort of big, ambitious approaches to building housing where the municipality is in the driver's seat. In that case, you need to de-risk it for the voters. What are you asking the voters, your constituents, our shared constituents, to put up in terms of cost, risk, and liability prior to the housing being built and the new brandless growth coming in? And the more we can make it less risky for them, less of a tax pressure on the municipal tax rate that they pay, then the more popular these projects are going to be and we'll get them through these local processes. And then lastly, you've heard it here before, you'll hear it again. We support expanded municipal revenue authorities so that they can take on these types of projects.
you
So
know,
that's all.
we are just a few minutes away from the floor. Tom, did you have one last question? Or have you forgotten it?
Just to, from the very beginning, express my concern that we balance consistent code with property owners' freedoms, because the ones who won't show up are the ones who are independent, don't want to be told what to do. I've seen this play out in Chester. I'm watching it play out in other towns. And right now, the FLU map for Rutland, which are still being worked on, have a few mysterious decisions made on it that involve big tracts of land that need to be answered. So I just want to express my caution with regard to over-regulating what a property owner can do. Because that will fit in custom for it, so we'll.
Well, in that case, wouldn't it be hard, it would be harder
So-
to get those codes passed through if there was a huge uproar from the community?
You know.
I just want to remind you that FLUs, the regional plans, those are not a municipal process. And the exemption, the tiered exemption is not a municipal authority. That's a regional planning
Yes.
process. They create the maps, they do the outreach. They're bringing the folks.
Some of their, I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out how they drew some of their lines in some areas.
Yeah.
What criteria they use, because there's adjacent parcels of land that are.
It's also not,
identical, But
it's also not it doesn't change private property rights. How the,
yeah, okay,
right? It doesn't change it doesn't move somebody's property boundary.
no,
It doesn't affect the municipal code. That is derived from a separate authority in the law, and that is only created and enforced by
The exemptions.
by the town of
The
Chester.
tier exemptions, you mean?
No, like whatever Chester says about how, if what its downtown district is, what happens and doesn't happen in the residential district. That is separate from the FLU mapping process. The FLU mapping process will affect those things in the way that it will say only up to here is eligible for tier 1. And everything not in here in the pink donut is not eligible for tier 1. So if there's a property owner or a redevelopment or a big brownfield or a certain civic place in your community that the town wants in to the future eligible exempted area, that's really important to get right, for sure.
Thank you. We've got to stop, but hey, Samantha, thank you so much for
You're
this.
so knowledgeable,
Appreciate it a lot.
very helpful.
Wish we could just mind meld.
I know.
It is a real problem because property owners don't tend to pay attention until their property want to do something.
well,